This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. So glad you could be with us this evening. Bernadette Butler has spent a lifetime battling for the care of her autistic son, battling for what he needed and deserved. But life was very different when he was born, and she shares her challenges and victories in the hope of inspiring other parents with similar frustrations in her book entitled Living with Autism.
My son, he's 43 now, so I told the story about struggling to understand autism during the 1970s. There were no programs, and in the public school system, there weren't any classes because they really didn't understand that. So I wrote the journey about that and what happened with me challenging and pushing the system to get Melvin integrated into a couple of classrooms or even accepted in the public school setting. He was born in Chicago, and we moved to California. And I first heard the word autism by a preschool teacher, and she started telling me about he's not socially doing certain things. And from there, Melvin and I was in and out of different doctor's offices and so forth. Also, he was enrolled in autism program at UCLA. And I had some disagreements with that because they would shock the children if they pointed to the wrong answer.
Oh, my goodness.
But it did help me to understand the disorder a little bit more. That was devastating to me. You know, you have your child and you're thinking, oh, when they grow up, they're going to go to college, they're going to get married, I'm going to have grandchildren. And to come to the realization that that's not going to happen. Now you have to redirect your thought to how can I help him to get to the best potential in him. And not what I think he should be, but what he can do. And that was a challenge to my faith in Christ. I really have had to hold on to him to keep myself together to search for the help for Melvin. So the first year in kindergarten, oh my gosh, that principal and the staff had a fit because they didn't have a program and they didn't want him there. I said, well, I pay taxes. He's going to be there. So when he got to the first grade, they started documenting him. But they didn't know that at home I went over things with him. He knew how to say his ABCs, the colors, animals, 1, 2, 3, tells the time. Plus, I was taping all of the sessions that I did with Melvin. So they was trying to document him out. And I would go up to the school, peek in the window, watching the teachers, see if she's going to treat my son differently, which she was. And she complained to the principal. So they put construction paper up. And one day the principal, she met me and she said, you can't do that. You have to sign in. I said, okay, fine. I signed in, got my badge, and I still didn't leave the campus. And I went in the classroom and she was asking Melvin some questions. What time is it, Melvin? And he would say if it was 10 o'clock, he was saying it was 11 o'clock. If she pointed at an apple, he would say an orange, and he was giggling. And when he turned around and saw me, I said, let's do this again. And he did everything that the teacher thought he couldn't do. So they called an IEP meeting, and they still was trying to get Melvin out. But I had these tapes, and the school psychiatrist started listening to the tapes, the sessions. And then they said, well, she made him do these things. And he said, no, she can't make him. So they ended up paying for a private school session for Melvin. And Melvin went to school there, and he flourished. And then we moved where they didn't have anything. It was like starting all over again. So I just started writing letters to the representatives in the area, calling the State Department of Education in Sacramento. I wrote a letter to Washington, D.C., the Office of Civil Rights in the Disability area. And I finally started getting some help from them because they wrote a letter to the school district, told them they was out of compliance. And then they got mad with me.
So really,
Uh,
this was the battle for your son's education. How did he make out?
he graduated with a diploma.
That's amazing.
At that time, yes. When he was a senior, they said, we usually give the children like this certificates. I said, no, he's going to take the state test. Well, he won't pass it. I said, in some areas by law, you can modify it. Melvin took the test and passed it. Everybody was shocked. And one teacher that was against Melvin doing that, she told me, I will never do that again. I will never judge another child like that. She said, I was taught a great lesson. And I said, wow, just think of all the children she had after that. I tell these stories on Facebook to encourage parents. And I just want them to keep moving forward and see there is still hope. And things are so much better than what it was when Melvin started.
That's true, Bernadette, but there's still a lot of battles that parents are fighting. What a story. Thank you. Ewart Brown is a retired minister from Oregon and a motivational speaker. He's written a number of books, but A Candy a Day is his first book with Paige. And the message is,
just be nice.
it sounds a little bit like Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Yes.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Except mine is nicer. Mine is sweeter. That's why it's called a candy, see? It is inspirational, motivational, because not only do I want to quiet people's minds and souls, but I want them to put the quietness into action, whereby it is affecting other people, which it so happens that it's a cycler in the sense that when they affect other people, it comes right back to them. And then they want to give more, and it comes back to them. Then they want to give more and more and more.
Did you feel there was a particular need for this right now?
Yes, oh, absolutely. Please. I've always felt it, even within my church family. I felt it in the community, in the streets. I felt it. Not recognizing that 2017 and 2018 would be the most critical years in United States when this would be the meat, the substance, the Starbucks stop, the everything, the juice that people needed. Yes, just to be nice.
Oh, God, it just sounds so simple. So, can you give me some examples of what I'll find?
Maybe one of the sweetest stories that you'll find is the one where I stopped at a Safeway store. I was in line, and there was a lady behind me, and I engaged her in conversation to learn that she was just passing through the city. She's a stranger. And after I was checked out, I said to the checker, would you please be nice to this lady? And the checker said, you mean be nice like giving her a hug? And the stranger lady said, yes, I love hugs. So I stepped back to watch what would happen. And the checker walked around and gave her a big old hug. I felt so jealous. So I said to the lady, can I have a hug also? And I got it. And then another customer behind in line shouted, do I have to wait in line for my hug? So the checker went around after and hugged her. And I'm just wondering, what the world are the rest of the people thinking? What has just happened in the presence of our eyes? People are caring. People are people. That is indeed one of my most favorite stories.
That's awesome. But of course, there's always going to be the guy in line who says, please don't touch me. I hate hugs.
Yes, and I was careful to cover that in my story. There are those. However, that same person I've discovered, Alice, who may not want to be touched nor hugged, will appreciate a smile, a good morning, have a good day.
Right.
So my book is all about connecting with people, even with the strangers. Make a difference in somebody's day every day. A candy a day keeps the doctor away.
Yeah.
And then others would say, well, I thought it was an apple a day. Well, we've bypassed that. We have long passed that now.
We need some candy now.
We need some candies. Yes.
All
we need some sweetening up.
All right. Give me some candy. Thank you. Reed Alexander started writing seriously around the age of 25, and it's taken him about a decade to get his first book published. He's a project coordinator at an engineering firm, so he's very busy. but creative. And his first book, Bend or Break, basically came out of frustration with a superhero.
So it's actually based on how much I hate Superman.
I got that.
I know that sounds really weird, but basically, I decided to write this book when I went out to see Superman Returns, I believe it was.
Okay.
And that was when they were really kind of showing off the powers of Superman in a movie setting, and it's the one where like a guy shoots him in the eye and the bullet like flattens upon his iris.
Yeah.
And the one where he like lifts an entire island like made out of kryptonite, and it's just like, wait, isn't it that supposed to kill him? And he's like flying away with a whole island made of the stuff. So he's always been so invulnerable, and it's hard for me to imagine anything quite so just fantastic as sort of like a bleak realist myself. So I tried to imagine more of a Nietzschean Superman. Someone who is fallible, someone who achieves their powers kind of selfishly, and it just turned into this thing. I started doing some research into the philosophy of mind over matter and becoming the absolute of human potential. And, I dabbled in a little Eastern religion, and I discovered some of the concepts of enlightenment from Eastern religion include what is referred to as a bodhisattva. And this is an enlightened one. If you become enlightened, you ascend and you return to Brahma, I believe it is. In the case of a bodhisattva, I would compare it to the concept of like an angel. They decide not to ascend, and they stay on earth to try and help others escape from suffering and become enlightened. Now, in my research of this concept, I discovered legends from almost like an offshoot of individuals who had almost accidentally become enlightened, and because they didn't have the discipline to be enlightened, they come almost dark, like damaging, defilling, and it's almost like a dark enlightened one, someone who has the power but none of the discipline. And that's where I came up with this concept. So you kind of are thrust into the middle of it on his quest for revenge against this phantom that he's been hunting for years when the book begins. And this is a powerful controller of a local New York syndicate who murdered his family and basically left him for dead when he was a young child. And for, a long time, he spent his life in an institution, captured in his own mind, in utter paralysis of the horrors that he had witnessed as a young child. And through this, he figured out how to affect reality, because the imaginary world that he hid inside allowed him to discover his mind. And when he escaped that world and came back to reality, he kept some of that with him, and eventually over time learned how to use it to bend reality around him. So it was more like when he was in the institution.
This guy sounds like he walked right out of Gotham.
Like Batman, yeah. The difference between him and Batman is that Batman is actually a good person. I don't want to spoil it. It is the beginning of a series. Okay. This book sets up another character who gets caught in the wake of our main character, who I only refer to as narrator because I never give him a name. And actually you find out that because he's out for revenge and he's abusing these powers, he's slowly becoming nothing. Like he is achieving oblivion. If he actually does finally seek revenge and murder the person who murdered his family, he effectively ceases to be. And that's like the choice that he has to make. So there's this other character who kind of gets swept away, and she's going to be the focus of the next book.
All right, Reed, I expect to see these characters at the next Comic-Con. That's what this reminds me of. Anyway, something to chew on while we take a very short break. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books, and unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them, and they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
We are back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Marcy Falango lives in Florida, plays pool with her husband, a little 8-ball, little 9-ball, and she writes. She likes mystery and murder and gets a little help from a friend in the business. Now she's published her first book. It is entitled Rocky Mountain Deception. Marcy.
Well, it's a mystery murder novel, yes it is, but it's based on a detective and her partner, and she's unhappy in New York where she was, so she decided to move to Colorado, where she thought it was going to be really peaceful, quiet, calm, and she got into a lot of trouble over there and found out it just wasn't as peaceful as she thought it would be. She found out that her husband was money laundering with her sister. They were together, and they got higher levels involved, like the mayor, who was one of the ringleaders. And she and Detective Miranda wound up hunting them all down, including her husband, which wasn't very pleasant for her. Things like that never end very well.
She was hunting him down while living with him.
Yeah, and finding out all the dark secrets about, him and her sister. But Miranda winds up losing everything she ever loved. And she wants to go back to New York and try to start a new life. We found out, it's really not as bad in New York as she thought it was. What happens is she's going to have to go back anyway. That's why I'm writing another book. She's going to have to go back with her partner and solve, where did the money come from and how did it all start? Who got it? The money laundering. She's trying to figure that out. Plus, she has a friend in New York that has been a buddy of hers for quite some time, and she's about to find out that her buddy is not a buddy like he thought she was. Actually, Miranda's world is really being torn upside down until she can finally, figure everything out. And, it's just right now it's a mess, and she's going to work her way through it.
And this is based on somebody you know?
Well, not a true story, no. It's just that I have a friend who's in the detective business.
Okay.
She's a cop. And she's helped me with all the legalities. You got cold cases, that I can work with and all kinds of stuff. I've got angles I want to work on, and I'm sure she can help me with those.
All right. It's a good story, Marcy. It's very interesting.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Got a lot of twists and
I
turns.
just hope it gets bigger.
Well, you got to get out there. You got to get behind it. That's the only way it's going to happen.
I am trying. I really am.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just not as easy as, you want it to be.
It's not. It's not.
You know that. You've been in the business a while.
A lot of people start with the local newspaper, the local library, and I bet you
That's true.
there's book clubs down there. There's people down there reading books. It's kind of like you have to infiltrate those groups, and then they start reading it, and they start talking about it, and then boom, 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 it kind of goes like that.
I never thought about the book club down here. I got so involved in starting to write this other one, I didn't even think about it. But I'm going to have to. I like that idea.
Thanks, Marcy. Let me know how you make out.
Well, I will, and thank you for the call.
Joseph Medeiros makes pizzas and gets a lot of ideas, so he started writing them down, and the next thing he knew, he had a book. It's entitled The Window.
Well, in the book, it explains these things would pop in my head, these sayings and such. And I would write them on different small scrap papers and put them over the place. I enjoyed it as I got more and more of these notes. So I put them on a notebook, and before you know it, I had a bunch, and I saw Page Publishing on television, and I figured I'd give it a go and share this with others.
What were you writing down?
The book is, I do philosophy, poetry, rhymes, riddles. I guess these things just, I don't understand how they came, but I used to read these notes a little at a time, and I said, boy, this is pretty different, like enigmas, poetry, proverbs, parables. There are stories, pleasure of taking a bath, the magic of music. I noticed in Barnes & Noble's, the philosophy part wasn't all that large. So I read a few things in the books that were there, and I said, I think I can do this, and I wanted to share it with others. Some of it's pretty interesting. There's a little science in that, too.
What's your philosophy?
To enjoy life and pay attention to your family. The family is really my biggest thing. That's where my heart comes to. And express yourself as you honestly feel. The book is really all honesty, and it's about family and children and many, many aspects of life. I had a dream I was in the mountains, and it was beautiful out, and the gist of it is a little pig ran across the field to me and was all frantic. I looked around and said, oh, there's some adult pigs, and I brought it back. And I was going to do that as a child's book, but then it got a little gruesome. When I put the piglet down, they did really bad things to it.
What'd you do to the pig?
I brought the pig to the adult, where the adult pigs were, figuring, oh, this poor piglet is lost. And it was shaking the closer I got to the pack. And they were looking at me, and immediately, as soon as it touched the ground, they devoured it.
They ate the pig?
Then the baby one. And then the big pig looked at me, red eyes, bloody teeth, and I said, oh boy, it's growling. So I ran. It was running after me. Then I didn't hear any sound. So I stopped and looked around frantically, and it was gone. And then the story of that is when is right wrong. So thinking I was going to help that little poor thing, I brought it to its death. Then I was running for my life. Weird dream, but it is what it is, and I wrote it down, and people can look at it and have some fun with it. There's a lot of fun things in here, too. Things that make you cry, things that make you happy. I think it's pretty interesting. I do write music as well. I wrote 20 songs, and some of those are in the book, too. I put it down as, because all my songs are stories. And I left out the music trend of it, like the repeats and news and ahs, and it tells a story. Like this one, Knights Without Armor. That's about, it's really about how children are treated. If I could read it to you quickly.
Okay.
Mothers are weeping in sorrow, fathers are walking in fear, children confused by it all, filling their eyes with tears. Why? Knights without armor. Some children are grabbed by the reaper. Some children are victims of divorce. Some are taken for money. Some are told to get lost. Children are born from passion. Mutiny in a family means war. Your child is missing in action. The toys lie still on the floor. To convince yourself in anger, you confuse many in law. Your child was born from each other. If you allow it to rain, it will pour. Where is the family circle? Where is the family tree? Is the love I have for you equal to the love you have for me? Knights without armor.
Nice. Very nice.
That's just one subject. There's all different types of subjects.
All right, Joseph. Well, thanks for giving us a window into your thoughts. Finally, Grenville Morgan Jr. took a writing class about 10 years ago and really liked a story he came up with for one of his assignments. He decided it was time to get it published. It is entitled Adventures in and Beyond Jalia.
Well, two friends go insect hunting for an extra credit class project, and they end up running into a cave by a storm. And from there, they end up on another planet. And when they get to the planet, the people there are being oppressed by a interloper, I guess you'd call it. And these guys have a good sense of ethics, so they help the people out with their problem. And then the adventures continue as the book goes on.
Well, you said that they found themselves helping people with a major problem.
Right.
What's the problem?
Well, they've had an intruder come in, and he's run them out of their city of Joliet. So these guys help the people eradicate him. And then afterwards, they are called back. And adventures, at one point, they're back in prehistoric times, without giving too much away. And it's more of a survival on that part of the book. And Page Publishing made this 2 books, actually. It's 1 volume, but it's a book 1 and book 2. They did a great job with that. So in the first book, they, like I say, eradicate the intruder. In the second book, they're thrown into more turmoil. And it's just an interesting series of events, kind of keep you on the edge of your seat. The intruder's the evil one. They end up having to capture him.
Now, you wrote this 10 years ago when you were taking a writing course. Do you have any characters? What are their names? Where are they from?
Well, the 2 friends that get transported are Travis and Raymond. And when they get transported, they come across the family. It's Menzel is the father, Donella is the mother, and Florina is the daughter. And Florina kind of links up them, so there's kind of a trio of them going through all this stuff together.
How old are they?
Oh, they're adolescents. They have to go sneak into the city of Joliet to get the intruder, and there's adventures right there. I mean, a bunch of different events.
So where do we go from here?
So I've got the second book written, and I've actually started a third. So
how do the adventures change? They run into different people, or?
Correct. Run into different people and different situations, calamities and so forth that they have to solve.
Okay.
And I've actually finished a second book, Adventures Below and Above Joliet, so the adventure continues on. I just have to get that to the publisher here shortly.
All right, Granville, you get on that, and we'll get ready for the next edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. We are out of time, but not authors. We have so many first-time authors getting the job done, my head is spinning, and so should yours, with ideas for your first book. Come on now. If they can do it, you can too. If you need a refresher on any of our shows, just go to 710WOR.com and download our podcast. If you have any thoughts to share, email me, come on, at alice.stocktonrossini@iheartmedia.com. You can look up the spelling on our webpage. That's alice.stocktonrossini@iheartmedia.com. In the meantime, enjoy whatever you're doing, and please, write on.